Have you ever found yourself bending over backward for someone's attention, only to feel more invisible in their eyes? You call, you text, you wait, only to be met with silence or a lukewarm response. It feels unfair, doesn't it? You give so much, but the more you chase, the further they seem to drift away. This is the classic paradox of relationships. The harder you try to pull someone closer, the more they resist. But what if I told you there's a better way? A way rooted in the timeless wisdom of Stoicism and designed to restore both your dignity and their desire to connect with you. In the world of Stoic relationships, this video will uncover 6 transformative strategies to create emotional distance and, in turn, gain their attention in a way that feels authentic and empowering. These strategies are not quick fixes, they're foundational shifts that align with the principles of Stoicism. But let's start by asking the real question. Why do we feel the need to chase attention in the first place? And what if the very act of chasing is the problem? Stick with me, because what you're about to discover might just flip your entire approach to relationships. Let's dive into the first step toward creating emotional distance and reclaiming your power. 1. Understanding emotional overinvestment. Why do we overinvest in relationships? Why do we find ourselves giving too much, texting too often, or bending our boundaries to keep someone close? The truth is, overinvestment often stems from insecurity, fear of rejection, or the mistaken belief that our worth is tied to someone else's approval. It's as if we think the more we give, the more we'll receive in return. But as you may have painfully realized, relationships don't work that way. Let's break this down. Imagine a relationship as a set of scales. When one person is overly available, constantly giving, and endlessly accommodating, the scales tip. Instead of balance, there's imbalance. And imbalance in relationships often leads to resentment, loss of attraction, and eventually, disconnection. Why? Because people naturally value what is scarce, not what is abundant. When you're always available, always giving, your presence becomes something taken for granted rather than cherished. This doesn't mean you're doing something inherently wrong by caring. On the contrary, your care is valuable, but only when it's balanced with self-respect and boundaries. Emotional overinvestment often signals to the other person that your time, energy, and attention are easy to come by. And as uncomfortable as it sounds, people tend to undervalue what they don't have to work for. So how do we change this dynamic? The answer lies in understanding the psychological principle of scarcity. But how do you implement this in practice? First, ask yourself, why do you feel the need to overinvest? What fear or insecurity drives this behavior? Often, it's the fear of loss. Ironically, this fear pushes people further away. The more you cling, the more suffocated they feel, and the more likely they are to withdraw. Let me share a simple exercise rooted in Stoicism to help you break free from this cycle. Write down 3 things you've done recently to seek someone's attention. Now, ask yourself, were these actions coming from a place of confidence and self-worth, or from fear and neediness? Be honest. Stoicism teaches us that the only thing within our control is our own mind and actions. You cannot force someone to value you, but you can choose to value yourself first. Next, practice restraint. When you feel the urge to send a second text because they haven't responded, pause. When you feel the need to rearrange your schedule to accommodate them, consider if it's truly necessary. Restraint is not about withholding, it's about regaining balance. By slowing down, you shift the dynamic. You allow yourself the time and space to focus on what truly matters, your own growth and happiness. Let's circle back to the scales metaphor. Imagine those scales again. This time, instead of tipping them with overinvestment, you hold steady. You give, but not more than you're receiving. You care, but not at the expense of your own well-being. Slowly, the scales find balance, and with balance comes respect, admiration, and genuine connection. Finally, remember this. Emotional overinvestment isn't just about them, it's about you. It's about your relationship with yourself. Are you showing up for yourself with the same energy you're pouring into others? If not, why not? The foundation of any healthy relationship, including those rooted in Stoic relationships. Take a moment to reflect. Are you over-investing in relationships right now? Are you tipping the scales too far in one direction? And if so, what's one small step you can take today to restore balance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences and insights. The journey to creating emotional distance is not about withdrawing love or playing games. It's about reclaiming your power and creating space for healthier, more meaningful connections. And this is just the beginning. In the next section, we'll explore the transformative power of self-focus and how redirecting your energy inward can naturally attract the attention you seek. 2. The power of self-focus. Why do we often forget ourselves in the pursuit of someone else's attention? Think about it. How much of your day is consumed by thoughts of what someone else is doing, thinking, or feeling? Now ask yourself an even harder question: how often do you spend that same energy on yourself? If you're being honest, the answer might surprise you. The truth is, when we focus too much on others, we neglect the most important relationship we'll ever have, the one with ourselves. And yet the paradox is that by redirecting your energy inward, you naturally become more attractive and magnetic to those around you. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. In a world that constantly tells us to seek validation from others through likes, messages, or attention, it takes strength to turn inward. But this is where Stoicism comes into play. The teachings of Stoicism remind us to focus on what we can control: our actions, our thoughts, and our personal growth. By channeling your energy into becoming the best version of yourself, you not only build a life that feels fulfilling, but you also create a sense of intrigue and independence that naturally draws others in. Let's break this concept down into practical steps. First, what does self-focus even look like? It doesn't mean shutting out the world or ignoring people you care about. Instead, it's about prioritizing your own growth, happiness, and goals. It's about asking, what do I want? What lights me up? And then giving yourself the permission to pursue those things wholeheartedly. When was the last time you pursued a passion simply because it brought you joy? When did you last learn something new, not for someone else's approval, but for your own growth? These are the kinds of questions that can shift your perspective and reframe how you see yourself. When you're engaged in your own life, whether through hobbies, career goals, or self-improvement, you become someone worth paying attention to. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because your energy is magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who are fulfilled and confident in their own right. Here's where the transformation begins. Start small. Identify one area of your life that you've been neglecting. Maybe it's your health, a creative hobby, or a personal goal you've been putting off. Dedicate time to it, even if it's just 30 minutes a day. The more you invest in yourself, the less you'll feel the need to chase someone else's attention. And as you grow, you'll notice something fascinating. People start noticing you. They sense your independence, your confidence, your spark. You're no longer chasing, you're attracting. But let's be real, this isn't an overnight process. It takes time and consistency to shift your focus inward, especially if you're used to seeking validation from others. That's why it's important to celebrate small wins along the way. Every time you choose to spend time on yourself rather than waiting for someone else's call, you're reclaiming a piece of your power. Every step forward is proof that you're capable of creating a life that feels whole, regardless of anyone else's attention. As you cultivate self-focus, you'll also find that your relationships begin to change. When you're no longer operating from a place of neediness or insecurity, you approach connections with a sense of calm and clarity. You're no longer looking for someone to fill a void. Instead, you're inviting them to share in the fullness of your life. This shift is not only empowering but also deeply attractive. It signals to others that you value yourself, and when you value yourself, others will too. Let me ask you this. If you were to take a snapshot of your life right now, what would it show? Are you pouring your energy into things that truly matter to you, or are you stuck in a cycle of seeking approval from others? Be honest with yourself. Change starts with awareness, and the sooner you recognize where your energy is going, the sooner you can begin to redirect it towards something more fulfilling. If this idea resonates with you, I want you to do two things right now. First, hit the like button on this video and comment number 1 if you agree that self-focus is the key to regaining your power. Let's create a space where we remind each other of our worth and celebrate our growth. Second, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Returning to the principles of Stoicism, it's important to remember that self-focus is not about arrogance or selfishness. It's about clarity and self-respect. The ancient Stoics believed that happiness and fulfillment come from living in alignment with our values and focusing on what we can control. By dedicating yourself to your own growth, you're honoring this timeless wisdom and building a foundation for deeper, more meaningful relationships. Take a moment to reflect on this. What would your life look like if you truly prioritized yourself? Imagine the energy, confidence, and peace you'd gain. Imagine how your relationships would transform if you approached them from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. This is the power of self-focus, and it's within your reach. Remember, this isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each day you have the choice to invest in yourself. Each moment is an opportunity to step into your power. So what will you choose? Will you continue chasing someone else's attention? Or will you start building a life so full and fulfilling that others can't help but take notice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you're planning to focus on yourself and take the first step toward reclaiming your power. And this is just the beginning. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore the importance of setting boundaries and how they can completely transform your relationships. If you've ever struggled to say no or felt like people take advantage of your kindness, you won't want to miss it. Make sure to subscribe so you're the first to know when the next video is live. 3. Setting boundaries and respecting yourself. In the delicate dance of relationships, the concept of boundaries often seems elusive. How do you define where you end and someone else begins? How do you ensure that your kindness isn't mistaken for weakness or your generosity for availability at all times? These questions, though difficult, lie at the heart of healthy connections. Without boundaries, relationships falter. They become one-sided, draining, or even toxic. The good news is that setting boundaries doesn't push people away. It actually strengthens your bonds, fosters respect, and most importantly, ensures you respect yourself. The question you may be asking is, what exactly are boundaries and why are they so important? Boundaries are the invisible lines that define your limits. They are the rules you set for how others treat you, how much time and energy you're willing to give, and how you ensure your own needs are met. In the context of Stoic relationships, let's address a common misconception right away. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It's not rude, cruel, or unkind. In fact, boundaries are one of the most compassionate things you can bring to any relationship. Why? Because they provide clarity. They eliminate guesswork and misunderstandings. When someone knows your boundaries, they understand what you need to feel respected and valued. And when you enforce those boundaries, you teach them that you respect yourself. But why is it so hard to set boundaries? The answer often lies in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of being perceived as cold or unloving. These fears are valid. They're part of being human. Yet, if left unchecked, they can keep you trapped in patterns of overextension and resentment. To break free, you must confront these fears with the courage and clarity that Stoicism encourages. Let's start with a foundational truth. You are responsible for your own well-being. No one else can protect your energy, time, or emotional health as effectively as you can. If you don't set boundaries, you're essentially handing that responsibility to others, hoping they'll handle it with care. But not everyone will. Some people will take as much as you're willing to give, leaving you drained and frustrated. It's not their fault, it's human nature. This is why boundaries are essential. They're not about controlling others, they're about controlling your own life. Practical steps to set boundaries begin with self-awareness. What are your limits? What behaviors or situations make you uncomfortable? What do you need to feel valued and respected? Write these down. Be specific. For example, instead of saying, "I need more space," clarify what that means. "I need at least 2 evenings a week to focus on my own hobbies or rest." Clarity is key. Once you've identified your boundaries, The next step is to communicate them. This can feel intimidating, especially if you're not used to asserting yourself. But remember, boundaries are not demands, they're expressions of your needs. For example, instead of saying, "You can't text me late at night," try, "I need to turn off my phone after 9 p.m. to recharge, so I won't be available after that time." This approach is clear, kind, and non-confrontational. Of course, setting boundaries is only half the battle. The real challenge lies in enforcing them. People may test your limits, either intentionally or unintentionally. How you respond in those moments defines the strength of your boundaries. It's not about being harsh or punitive, it's about consistency. If someone repeatedly crosses a boundary you've set, you have the right to reinforce it. This might mean stepping back from the relationship or reducing your availability. Whatever the case, enforcement is non-negotiable. A boundary that isn't enforced is no boundary at all. But boundaries aren't just about saying no to others, they're also about saying yes to yourself. Every time you set a boundary, you're choosing your well-being over people-pleasing. You're affirming that your time and energy are valuable, and over time this self-respect becomes a magnet. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with dignity and confidence, who know their worth and live accordingly. Consider this. How often have you said yes when you really wanted to say no? How many times have you stayed silent when someone crossed a line, simply to avoid conflict? Reflect on those moments. Were they worth the peace you sacrificed? Stoicism teaches us that avoiding discomfort in the short term often leads to greater discomfort in the long term. By setting boundaries, you embrace the temporary challenge of asserting yourself, but you gain the lasting reward of healthier, more respectful relationships. Let's take a moment to apply this to a hypothetical scenario. Imagine you have a friend who frequently asks for favors, often at inconvenient times. You value the friendship, but their constant requests are draining you. Without boundaries, you might keep saying yes, even as resentment builds. But what if you chose to set a boundary? You might say, "I'm happy to help when I can, but I need more notice for these kinds of favors." This simple statement doesn't reject the friend, it sets a limit that protects your time and energy. What's remarkable is how often people respond positively to boundaries. When communicated with kindness and clarity, boundaries signal strength and self-respect. They show that you take your relationships seriously enough to define and protect them. And even if someone reacts negatively at first, over time, they'll likely come to appreciate the clarity and fairness your boundaries bring. Of course, there will be exceptions. Some people may resist your boundaries or even attempt to undermine them. In these cases, you face a choice. Continue enforcing your boundaries or reevaluate the relationship. While it's never easy to step back from someone you care about, it's important to remember that a relationship built on a lack of respect is not a healthy one. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Apply this wisdom to your boundaries. Instead of debating whether someone should respect your limits, act in alignment with your values and enforce them. As you practice setting and maintaining boundaries, you'll notice a shift, not only in your relationships but in yourself. You'll feel more confident, more grounded, and more at peace. The anxiety of overextending yourself will fade, replaced by a sense of control and self-respect. And as you grow in this way, your relationships will reflect that growth. They'll become more balanced, more fulfilling, and more aligned with the principles of Stoic relationships. Reflect on your own life for a moment. Are there relationships where your boundaries feel unclear or non-existent? What steps can you take today to begin defining and asserting them? Start small. Choose one boundary to set or reinforce this week, and notice how it makes you feel. This practice is not just about relationships, it's about reclaiming your time, energy, and emotional health. Remember, boundaries are not walls, they're bridges. They don't separate you from others. They create the conditions for deeper, more authentic connections. And while the process may feel uncomfortable at first, the rewards are worth it. You deserve relationships that honor your worth, just as you honor the worth of others. As we move forward in this journey, we'll explore how to refine this practice further by mastering the art of controlled availability. But for now, take a moment to reflect on the power of boundaries. Embrace the courage it takes to set them and the strength it takes to maintain them. This is your path to freedom, respect, and the kind of relationships that truly enrich your life. 4. The art of controlled availability. Have you ever noticed that when someone becomes too readily available, their presence starts to feel ordinary? It's not that they're any less valuable as a person, it's simply human nature. We crave what feels rare or special, and when something becomes overly accessible, its allure begins to fade. This principle applies just as much to relationships as it does to anything else in life. Controlled availability, then, is about reclaiming your time, energy, and presence, not to manipulate, but to create a natural sense of balance and respect in your connections. But what does controlled availability really mean? It's not about playing hard to get or ignoring people to make a point. It's about being intentional with your time and energy, and ensuring that your presence is truly appreciated when you choose to give it. It's a shift from being overly accommodating to being thoughtful about how, when, and why you show up. This shift, when done authentically, transforms the dynamics of any relationship. The first step in mastering controlled availability is recognizing your own value. How often do you prioritize someone else's needs over your own? How often do you drop everything to respond to a text, answer a call, or accommodate a last-minute request? While generosity and flexibility are admirable traits, constantly putting others first can lead to burnout and, ironically, a loss of appreciation from the very people you're trying to support. Controlled availability begins with a mindset shift. Ask yourself, is my availability a reflection of my choices, or am I reacting to others' demands? If it's the latter, it's time to take a step back. Being intentional with your time doesn't mean you care less. It means you care enough to ensure your energy is spent wisely. Think of it as quality over quantity. When you're deliberate about when and how you engage, your presence feels more meaningful and valued. One way to implement controlled availability is through the practice of pacing. For example, instead of replying instantly to every message, give yourself permission to respond when it aligns with your schedule and energy. This isn't about being unresponsive, it's about creating space for thoughtful communication. Imagine receiving a well-crafted, heartfelt message from someone who clearly took their time versus a quick, generic reply. Which one feels more meaningful? The same principle applies to your own interactions. By pacing your responses, you show that you're intentional and thoughtful, and this naturally fosters respect and admiration. Another key aspect of controlled availability is setting priorities. What truly matters to you? How do you want to spend your time? When you're clear about your priorities, it becomes easier to allocate your energy in ways that align with your goals and values. This might mean saying no to a last-minute invitation or rescheduling a meeting to honor your personal commitments. While it can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to being overly available, each small step toward intentionality builds confidence and self-respect. Controlled availability also involves embracing the power of unpredictability. People are naturally drawn to a sense of mystery and excitement, and when you're not always immediately available, you create space for curiosity to grow. This doesn't mean you need to be evasive or inconsistent. It simply means that you don't need to be predictable. If you've always been the first to respond, the first to suggest plans, or the first to check in, try stepping back and allowing others to take the initiative. You might be surprised by how they rise to the occasion. But let's address a common concern. Won't this make me seem distant or uninterested? Not if it's done with authenticity and care. The goal of controlled availability isn't to push people away, it's to create balance. When you're intentional about your presence, the time you do spend with others becomes more meaningful. You're fully engaged, fully present, and fully yourself. This level of authenticity not only deepens your connections but also strengthens your own sense of self-worth. Controlled availability is also deeply rooted in the principles of Stoicism. Take a moment to reflect on your current relationships. Are there connections where you feel taken for granted or overly accessible? How would it feel to reclaim some of your time and energy, not out of spite, but out of a desire to create healthier dynamics? Controlled availability is not a rejection of others, it's an affirmation of yourself. It's a way of saying, I value my time and energy, and I want our connection to reflect that value. As you begin to implement controlled availability, remember that change takes time. People may notice your shift and question it, but this is an opportunity to communicate your intentions with clarity and kindness. Let them know that you're focusing on creating balance in your life, and reassure them that your care and commitment remain unchanged. Most importantly, stay consistent. Controlled availability is not about intermittent bursts of attention or withdrawal. It's about finding a sustainable rhythm that honors both your needs and the dynamics of your relationships. Now, let's pause for a quick reflection. If this approach to relationships resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit the like button and comment number 1 if you're ready to reclaim your time and energy through controlled availability. It's amazing how even small changes in how you engage can lead to profound shifts in your relationships. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next chapter in our journey through Stoic relationships. The beauty of controlled availability is that it's a practice, not a rule. It's not about rigid schedules or calculated responses. It's about being mindful of your presence and ensuring that your energy is spent in ways that align with your values. Over time, this practice transforms not only your relationships but also your sense of self. You become more grounded, more intentional, and more magnetic in the eyes of others. Remember, relationships thrive on balance. Too much availability can lead to complacency, while too little can create distance. Controlled availability is the sweet spot. It's a way of fostering respect, curiosity, and genuine connection, all while staying true to yourself. So what will you choose? Will you continue being overly accessible, or will you embrace the art of controlled availability and step into a more empowered version of yourself? As we move forward, we'll explore how to harness the power of mystery and independence to create deeper, more meaningful connections. But for now, take a moment to reflect on how controlled availability can transform your relationships in your life. 5. Harnessing mystery and independence. In a world that thrives on constant connectivity and oversharing, the idea of cultivating mystery might feel outdated. After all, isn't transparency the cornerstone of trust? While openness and honesty are vital in relationships, there's a distinct difference between being transparent and being an open book. Mystery, when paired with authenticity, is not about withholding information or playing games. It's about preserving a sense of individuality and independence that naturally draws people closer. It's about showing enough to connect while leaving enough unseen to intrigue. The concept of mystery often gets misunderstood as manipulative, but in the context of Stoic relationships, it is a practice rooted in self-respect and self-containment. The Stoics believed in focusing on what is within our control and letting go of the need to constantly seek validation or approval from others. Mystery arises when we shift our focus inward, valuing our own thoughts, goals, and growth, rather than constantly seeking to explain or justify ourselves to others. To understand the power of mystery, consider the allure of a good story. A great narrative doesn't reveal everything up front. It unfolds gradually, allowing curiosity to build and engagement to deepen. Relationships are no different. When you maintain a sense of independence and keep parts of yourself reserved for discovery, you create an environment where curiosity can thrive. People are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand but sense is worth exploring. How do you cultivate this sense of mystery in a way that feels authentic and aligned with your values? It begins with independence. When you prioritize your own interests, goals, and personal growth, you create a life that others want to be part of. This independence doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means living a life so rich and fulfilling that others are inspired by your energy and depth. It's about being fully engaged in your journey, not waiting for someone else to define or complete it. Take a moment to reflect on your current dynamics. Are you over-explaining your every thought and action? Are you sharing so much that there's no room for curiosity? If so, ask yourself why. Is it rooted in a desire to connect or in fear of being misunderstood? Often the need to overexpose ourselves comes from insecurity, a belief that we must prove our worth or be constantly visible to stay relevant in someone's life. But the opposite is true. Independence and mystery signal confidence, self-worth, and depth, qualities that naturally attract others. Practically, cultivating mystery doesn't mean being secretive or evasive. It's about being selective and intentional with your communication. For instance, instead of sharing every detail of your day, highlight the moments that matter most to you. Instead of always volunteering your plans, allow some space for curiosity. This isn't about being coy. It's about embracing the fact that not everything needs to be shared immediately or completely. Mystery also thrives in moments of absence. When you're constantly present and accessible, there's little opportunity for others to miss or wonder about you. By stepping back at times, whether it's taking time for yourself, pursuing your interests, or simply enjoying solitude, you create space for others to reflect on your value. Absence, when balanced with meaningful presence, heightens appreciation and connection. But mystery is not only about how others perceive you, it's also about how you perceive yourself. When was the last time you surprised yourself? When did you last step out of your comfort zone or pursue something that challenged you? Cultivating mystery is as much an internal process as it is an external one. It's about embracing your own depth and complexity, knowing that you are a constantly evolving individual with layers yet to be uncovered. Consider the role of silence in mystery. In today's fast-paced world, silence often feels uncomfortable or awkward, but it is incredibly powerful. When you allow moments of silence, whether in conversations, relationships, or your own inner dialogue, you create space for reflection and curiosity. You signal that you are comfortable with stillness, that you don't need to fill every moment with noise or explanation. This kind of confidence is magnetic. Another aspect of mystery is maintaining boundaries around your personal growth. Not every goal, struggle, or aspiration needs to be broadcasted. While it's important to share with those you trust, it's equally important to have aspects of your journey that are solely your own. This doesn't mean shutting people out. It means preserving a sense of ownership over your life and growth. When others see that you are deeply engaged in your journey, they can't help but admire your independence and depth. Incorporating mystery into your relationships doesn't diminish connection, it enhances it. When you balance openness with restraint, independence with engagement, you create a dynamic that feels alive and exciting. People want to be around those who inspire them, who challenge them, who make them think. Mystery, when rooted in authenticity and independence, fosters this kind of inspiration. Let's not overlook the role of curiosity in maintaining mystery. Curiosity isn't just about making others wonder about you. It's about maintaining your own sense of wonder. When you approach life with curiosity, exploring new ideas, pursuing your passions, and embracing growth, you naturally exude a sense of vitality and depth. This curiosity keeps your relationships dynamic and engaging as you continually bring new energy and perspectives to the table. In the context of Stoicism, mystery is also about self-restraint. The Stoics emphasized the importance of controlling our impulses and focusing on what truly matters. By resisting the urge to overshare or overexpose, you create space for more meaningful interactions. You learn to appreciate the value of timing, pacing, and the gradual unfolding of connection. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are there areas where you've lost touch with your independence or sense of mystery? Are there parts of yourself that you've stopped nurturing because you've been too focused on external validation? If so, what steps can you take to reclaim those parts of yourself? This isn't about withholding who you are, it's about embracing all that you are, including the aspects that are still growing and evolving. As you move forward, embrace the idea that you are a dynamic, ever-changing individual. Your depth, your independence, and your sense of mystery are not traits to be hidden. They are gifts to be shared thoughtfully and authentically. By cultivating these qualities, you not only enhance your relationships but also deepen your own connection to yourself. Harnessing mystery and independence is not about creating distance, it's about creating intrigue. It's about allowing others to see you as a person of depth and substance, someone worth knowing and exploring. And in doing so, you strengthen the bonds that truly matter, while freeing yourself from the pressure to be constantly visible or validated. This principle is a cornerstone of Stoic relationships where balance, self-respect, and intentionality guide the way. As we prepare to dive into the next chapter of this journey, take a moment to reflect on how you can embrace your own mystery and independence. Let it remind you of the power you hold both in your relationships and in your life. 6. Maintaining authenticity and balance. As we've explored, creating emotional distance can transform relationships, but there's a critical element that ties everything together: authenticity. Without it, every strategy we've discussed, boundaries, controlled availability, mystery, can feel hollow or manipulative. Authenticity ensures that your actions come from a place of sincerity, not pretense. It's the difference between cultivating genuine connections and creating superficial ones. Maintaining authenticity while balancing emotional distance is the key to fostering relationships that are meaningful, sustainable, and rooted in respect. But what does it mean to be authentic in this context? At its core, authenticity is about being true to yourself, your values, your needs, and your emotions. It's about showing up as the real you, even as you implement strategies like boundaries and mystery. Emotional distance isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about presenting the best, most balanced version of who you are. One of the most common pitfalls when trying to create emotional distance is overcorrecting. In an effort to reclaim their power, some people go too far, becoming cold, distant, or dismissive. This approach not only feels inauthentic, but also undermines the very connection you're trying to improve. Balance is the antidote. It allows you to maintain space and independence while staying warm, present, and genuine. Start by asking yourself a simple but powerful question. What kind of relationships do you want to build? Are you looking for connections based on games, manipulation, and surface-level attraction? Or do you value relationships rooted in trust, respect, and depth? If the latter resonates with you, then authenticity must remain at the heart of everything you do. One of the ways to maintain authenticity is by being clear about your intentions. When you set boundaries, don't do so out of fear or anger, do it out of self-respect. When you practice controlled availability, don't do so to make someone chase you, do it to honor your time and energy. When you cultivate mystery, don't do so to confuse or frustrate others. Do it because you value your independence and personal growth. In short, let your actions reflect your values, not your insecurities. Authenticity also requires self-awareness. Take time to reflect on your motivations. Are you acting out of a desire to create healthier dynamics, or are you trying to provoke a reaction? Are your choices aligned with your principles, or are they driven by external pressures? These reflections, though challenging, are essential. As the Stoics taught, true power comes from knowing and mastering yourself. Balance is equally important in maintaining authenticity. Emotional distance doesn't mean detachment. It's not about cutting people off or withholding love. It's about creating space for both you and the other person to grow. Striking this balance requires ongoing effort. It's about knowing when to lean in and when to step back, when to speak and when to listen, when to give and when to hold firm. One practical way to find this balance is by checking in with yourself regularly. Pay attention to how you feel in your relationships. Are you giving too much? Are you holding back too much? Are you acting in ways that feel true to who you are? Use these moments of reflection to course correct as needed. Remember, balance is not a fixed state. It's a dynamic process that evolves with you and your relationships. Let's take a closer look at what balance and authenticity look like in action. Imagine you're in a situation where someone is seeking more of your time than you can reasonably give. Instead of avoiding them or overcommitting, you might say something like, "I really value our time together, but I also need to make space for other commitments. Let's plan something for next week when I can be fully present." This response is honest, respectful, and aligned with both your boundaries and your desire to maintain a genuine connection. Another way to maintain authenticity is by embracing vulnerability. Being authentic doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It's okay to admit when you're struggling, to ask for help, or to acknowledge when you've made a mistake. Vulnerability, when shared appropriately, deepens relationships and builds trust. It shows that you're human, and it invites others to connect with you on a deeper level. But what about situations where authenticity feels risky? Perhaps you fear that being true to yourself will lead to rejection or conflict. In these moments, turn to the wisdom of Stoicism. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control how others respond to us. We can only control how we show up. By acting with integrity and authenticity, you honor yourself, regardless of the outcome. And in the long run, those who value you for who you truly are will remain, while those who don't were never meant to stay. As you practice maintaining authenticity and balance, you'll likely notice a ripple effect. Your relationships will feel more genuine, your connections more meaningful, and your own sense of self-worth will deepen. This is the essence of Stoic relationships, building connections that reflect the best of who you are, while honoring the individuality of others. Let's pause for a moment. If this message resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit the like button and comment number 1 if you believe that authenticity and balance are essential in building healthy relationships. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Together, we're exploring the transformative power of Stoicism in relationships, and I don't want you to miss the journey ahead. Authenticity and balance are not destinations. They are ongoing practices. They require you to stay connected to yourself, to reflect, and to adapt. But the rewards are immense. When you show up authentically, you attract people who value you for who you are, not for who you're trying to be. When you maintain balance, you create space for relationships to thrive without losing yourself in the process. As we wrap up this journey, take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. Are you showing up authentically? Are you maintaining balance? If not, what steps can you take to align your actions with your values? These questions are not just rhetorical. They're an invitation to grow, to deepen your connections, and to embrace the wisdom of Stoicism in your life. As we reach the end of this journey, take a moment to step back and reflect on everything we've explored together. Relationships are complex, dynamic, and often challenging, but they are also one of the most rewarding aspects of life. Whether you're navigating new connections or trying to strengthen existing ones, the principles we've discussed offer a clear path forward, one rooted in balance, authenticity, and intentionality. Creating emotional distance isn't about building walls or playing games. It's about creating space for yourself to grow and for others to truly see your value. It's a process of reclaiming your time and energy, setting boundaries that protect your well-being, and fostering an air of intrigue that naturally draws people closer. Above all, it's about being true to yourself and showing up in relationships as the best version of who you are. Each of these steps is a piece of the puzzle, and together they form a holistic approach to building relationships that are both meaningful and sustainable. These principles align deeply with the wisdom of Stoicism, which reminds us to focus on what we can control, to act with integrity, and to approach life with clarity and purpose. But this journey is not just about relationships, it's about you. It's about reclaiming your power, rediscovering your worth, and creating a life that feels rich and fulfilling. When you prioritize yourself, when you live in alignment with your values, you not only enhance your relationships, but also deepen your connection to yourself. So where do you go from here? The answer lies in action. Start small. Choose one principle from this video and begin incorporating it into your life. Maybe you set a boundary that's long overdue, or perhaps you take a step back from seeking validation and invest that energy into something you love. Whatever it is, commit to it fully. Growth doesn't happen overnight, but with consistency, it becomes inevitable. Let's not forget the importance of reflection. As you move forward, take time to check in with yourself. Are you staying true to your intentions? Are your relationships reflecting the balance and respect you deserve? Use these moments of reflection to adjust, refine, and grow. Remember, the journey is just as important as the destination. And now, I want to hear from you. Which of these steps resonated most with you? What changes are you planning to make in your own relationships? Hit the like button and comment number 1 if this video has inspired you to approach your connections differently. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Together, we're building a community rooted in the principles of Stoicism and personal growth, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Thank you for being here, for engaging with these ideas, and for committing to your own growth. It's not always easy to take a step back, to reevaluate, and to make changes, but it's always worth it. You have the power to create relationships that are balanced, respectful, and deeply fulfilling. All it takes is the courage to start. Until next time, remember, your value is not determined by others. It's determined by how you show up for yourself and for the world. Take care, stay true to yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.